All right, well, it was bad news for Greens leader Adam Bandt this morning, and support for the Greens is plummeting. It's dropped to its lowest level since February. This is a survey from Resolve Political Monitoring, and it shows that, Michael, not surprising to any of us, but voters disagree with the Greens on negative gearing, on capital gains tax, and on Palestinian recognition. So, Michael, we still have the issue of preferences with Labor. They haven't come out and said they're not going to preference the Greens. Doesn't there need to be more pressure on Albanese over this?
Well, of course, Albanese needs to say he's not going to preference the Greens in every seat in this country. I mean, you know, let's be clear about this. This is Albanese's decision. There are 21 members of the federal executive of the Labor Party, 10 right, 10 left, and him. He has the casting vote. He can direct the federal director of the Labor Party to not preference the Greens, or not preference the Greens in every seat. Surely there are some seats where he's going to preference the Liberals over some of the more extremist Greens. But what we've seen on the and congratulations to The Age on their revelation on this morning, you know what's happened in this country? I think the Greens vote has topped out because it's no longer fashionable for young people to support the Greens. And the reason is young people have been told all their lives that racism is one of the worst things you can be accused of, and all of the Jewish hatred around the Green movement and their allies and hangers-on, this pro-Palestinian movement, you know, which is not anti-Jewish. Well, there's too much Jewish hatred emanating from these circles around the Green movement. And this has meant a lot of young people don't want to have anything to do with the Greens anymore. It is no longer fashionable for young people to be involved with a movement that is full of Jewish hatred. And that's why I think the Greens have topped out. People think they're not an environmental party, they're an extremist bunch.
I mean, the party has changed so much, Richo, from when it did used to be an environmental party, as Michael just said, under Bob Brown.
Well, under Bob Brown, they used to care about trees. They never mentioned trees in this modern era, ever. You never hear them talk about the environment. They have simply become the far left of Australia, and they're a pretty ugly-looking bunch.
We've been speaking a lot on this show about the Albanese government's decision to put $1 billion of taxpayer funds in the Psi Quantum supercomputer deal. Now, big news today in The Australian that the Christopher government in Queensland is going to review their stake in this. They could even revoke their $470 million investment. Michael, there's conflict of interest in this. The involvement of Labor mates is immense. And again, there's the question of why should $1 billion of Australian taxpayer funds go into a startup when there are plenty of private equity firms around?
You know, it shouldn't. Nor should they be investing up to $1 billion in solar panels, Sharri, to compete against the Chinese. I mean, good luck with that. I mean, as you say, this is the job of the private sector. This is the job of venture capital firms and private equity firms here and overseas. I mean, if you tried to ask any of those firms would they invest in these proposals, the answer would be no. If you asked any Australian whether they'd lend money, provide the debt facility to these firms, the answer would be no. This is very risky investments. The government shouldn't be making it, particularly at a time when the budget deficit and the Australian debt is at record levels. And of course, what they do is it's off balance sheet, so it doesn't appear in the annual profit and loss. That's how they get away with these things. But the government shouldn't be doing this. This is not the job of the government to be a venture capitalist. They're not Elon Musk after all.
I couldn't agree more. Look, the Auditor General has said that he'd consider an investigation, so hasn't launched one yet. But Richo, the links have started to come out, the spider network of Labor connections to this. The process is so flawed, the way this company had already met with Ed Husick well before any others got that sort of access. So, it is a good decision, isn't it, that the Queensland LNP is now going to review their own funding?
Yeah, this is a crook look. There's no doubt about that. No matter which way you look at it, it's ugly. And I don't know how Labor ever got this far down this track. But if ever there was a time to turn around and go back, right now is that time.
Yeah, it's going to be messy to even get out of, given, what that company, the Psi Quantum company, would have told the other shareholders, the decisions they would have made. It's going to be a very messy process from here on. All right, Michael Kroger, Graham Richardson, so great to have you as always.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sharri.